Side swivel motion, of course. What's up, guys? This is Scoopman5000 back for another action figure review, back with some more McFarlane, and today we're going to call it a catch-up. We got two different sets from two different lines. On one side is the Page Punchers Supergirl and Doctor Fate from the Injustice 2 line, and then we got the Multiverse Gold Label Eradicator and Vampire Batman. I guess the commonality here is that they're all pretty hard to find, and for different reasons. Gold labels, of course, Walmart exclusive, we all know how that goes. These Injustice figures, very elusive. They have not hit the US officially. I had to order these from Canada. I'm getting a little bit of FOMO, and I think if you are, get these internationally. They might not be coming, and we'll get into that. As always, leave a like, subscribe, and comment which figure you're most excited for here. So let's go ahead, let's open them up, and take a look. Now, usually we talk about the trading cards in this segment, but this is a Page Puncher. We haven't looked at that yet on this channel. And as you can see here, they're going to come with a comic book, and this is an exclusive book to these figures. It's the same exact book for Supergirl and Doctor Fate, as well as the previous Batman and Green Arrow that came out sometime last year. Going forward, I think they're going to have different covers based on each character, but for now, same exact book. Some things to note here is some of the characters in here. Over here, Deadshot, Killer Frost. Here's a good shot with Bane, Grundy, Cheetah, Captain Cold, Atrocitus, Scarecrow. And you can catch where I'm going here. I want to see these characters in plastic. Let's get another wave of Injustice. But Page Punchers, cool concept. Of course, we also do get trading cards with the figures. It's just the comic book cover art. And then for Supergirl, the only accessories are the fist hands. And that finally leaves us with Supergirl from Injustice 2. And this is our first Supergirl from McFarlane. I want to say Multiverse, but technically these are different, although they're basically Multiverse figures. And it's a good looking figure. Solid representation of the video game. If anything, I'll say the hair is a bit off because they did a really thick black wash on here. But the face, yeah, it looks good. If you look at it next to the model, that's kind of how the faces look in Injustice. And that's what we're seeing here. The costume, I think they picked a good one. I don't know if this is exactly her default, as we'll see with Dr. Fate and as we saw with the Green Arrow. They went with some variant looks. This is pretty close to the default. We got the nice Kara Zor-El crest right here. A little bit different from Superman's. On the back, on the cape, you see the same thing. Now, McFarlane, they tend to get a little crazy with capes, as we'll see later in this video, but I do like something like this. It's got a little bit of motion to it, but it could still be neutral. Interesting kind of thigh pieces here. And then we get into the boots here, or should I say something like kick pads, because we see the shoes are red. The inside is this blue tights. And then I can equate it to wrestling with kick pads. It's like an overlay on top of the tights. For Supergirl's articulation, the head is going to look up that much. Decent enough for some flying poses. And down, not so much because of the way the chin is sculpted. Torso's got a ball in the middle, ball at the bottom. So you're getting a combined, very decent upwards on the torso. And then down, not as much. Again, it's all due to the sculpting and where they decide to cut it. Nice T-pose right there. You're going to get some rotation at the bicep. Some double elbows, not as ugly as you might think on such a thin arm. Arms are on the classic ball joint. Speaking of classic, here's the McFarlane groin system. Kicking back that far, kicking forward a little bit better. Double knee, goes all the way back. Then we got a hinge at the ankle, very clicky ankles. You see I almost broke it. And the toe hinge. For comparison, let's check out Supergirl with the other two figures. From this wave, we got Batman and the Green Arrow. And the scale here is pretty good for McFarlane especially. And this is looking like a pretty sick lineup. We gotta get an Injustice 2 Superman. And then here's Supergirl with some of the other speedsters of Injustice 2. We got the Flash and we got the Reverse Flash. And I'm just realizing how many goddamn lines are on Mr. Thawne over here. And what's Supergirl without her cousin Clark Kent? So here we are with the Hush version, the angriest one I could find. And then we got the classic Rebirth suit. And I gotta say, I thought this figure would be way darker, but especially next to the Rebirth, that's a good combo right here. So especially while we don't have a comic book version of Kara, you definitely throw this one in your Justice League display for now. Up next, we're going to complete the wave with Dr. Fate, the Hand of Fate himself. He's got no accessories other than the comic book and the trading card. Nothing unique to the actual figure. And right away, we got to bring in the previously released Multiverse. And this is definitely a case of the same body pretty much all the way through until you get to the helmet. And as you can see, a different color scheme. And I gotta say, I dig the helmet. I thought we were gonna get the blue Dr. Fate that's in this comic book. This is much more of a traditional look, but he's definitely got a more armored aesthetic to the helmet, almost like a gladiator. And that's Injustice 2, baby. If you don't know, this whole game is full of ridiculous, armored up, bulky designs. So a little bit of extra garnet on the helmet. It's not really going to hurt anybody. It's still a pretty solid Dr. Fate. I think it actually has a good body shape. A lot of times you get wonky proportions. And while this guy isn't exactly a heroic build, it at least looks proportional. Point out the little onks or the eyeballs that are on his gloves here. Also worth noting, this is an old sculpt. This is back when McFarlane was not yet sculpting their ball joints at the wrist and at the feet. So it's a little bit noticeable now. They're not terrible. They're pretty small on Kent here, but still, just a little observation. For the head, not really looking up much at all because the helmet over here has a little bit of a fin to the back of it. Looks down decently enough. And that's really what you're going to want because you're going to have them levitating above your display looking over. It looks like these shoulder pads are glued on kind of wonky, not really matching each other, but they are out of the way. They go up over the shoulder and that looks pretty good. Legs are splitting out and you heard a little cracking noise there, so I guess we got some kind of action. Kicks back a little bit, kick forward, much better. Double knee, goes all the way back. Ankle joint and a toe joint. And here's Dr. Fate with his multiverse counterparts. We got the original Injustice 2 figure, and also from the critically acclaimed box office smash Black Adam, we got the cinematic Dr. Fate. As you can see, mine's got one of the most ridiculously warped ankles that a figure has ever had, but I guess he still stands up. What I think is going to happen here is that one of these are going to end up with the Justice League Dark that we kind of have building with the comic book figures, then he'll go back to the Injustice 2 shelf. So 3 pretty different, all things considered, versions of Dr. Fate. And here's the whole Page Puncher's Wave, finally complete after what feels like almost a year. And this is a very solid lineup. We got a great color selection here. This is just like its own little Justice League here. But I'd also love to see Cheetah, Captain Cold, Scarecrow especially. There's definitely plenty of good Injustice 2 designs to choose from, but luckily they did choose some good ones here as well. And up next, let's take a look at the Eradicator. And for his accessories, we got the stand and we got the trading cards. I'll show the one for Batman as well here. And then his only unique accessories are these opened up hands, and they got some orange paint on them. Now this is supposed to represent the Eradicator's powers. He's got these laser beam effects, but I think the execution just is not there for these hands. They're a little bit controversial from what I've seen online. Luckily, we also do have fists that come on the figure, and that's what I'm going to be using here. Those are going to go right into a bin. I'll probably never see him again. Now for the figure himself, looks like he's using a lot of the Rebirth body here, and I'm not too mad about that. It's a very good looking body, and I think the head actually fits a little better. It's a bit more proportional on this Eradicator figure. And then the cape is what I want to really stress here. I think it's a bit too extreme. It's a beautiful sculpt, but you're basically forced to have him in some kind of a flight pose, or if you want to get crazy, have him in some fighting, some action. But I think you should have the ability with your figures just to have him in that kind of neutral stance. And I think with that, the cape is just totally to the one side here. It's a bit too extreme, like I said. And speaking of that, what's up with this head sculpt? Because most of us know the Eradicator, the classic 90s version, just looks like Superman wearing goggles. But this is from a more recent storyline. The box says Shock Wave. I'm not sure if that's the story or if they just mean by the powers here. But it's the more modern take on Eradicator. And I think this is also happening with the Superboy, although he looks pretty similar. But then now we just got Steel announced, and he is from Reign of the Superman. So classic McFarlane, you know, they're going to give us the team, but it's going to be a little bit hodgepodge of designs. Someone like me, I'm really not bothered. I'm still going to put Superboy and Eradicator and Steel. They're all going to be next to each other, but it's going to be a little weird. Other than that, we got the classic Superman logo, and that looks very good. It's a bit raised off with the S here, and then the yellow is more offset into the background. We'll go into articulation, and if you have a Rebirth Superman, you're going to be used to this. Head's going up forward, head down that much, some swivel and rotation. The torso is going like this. I will say, very gappy here at the crotch, and that's one of the newer pieces, I think, because the lack of a belt. Torso is going to tilt this way as well. Nice T-pose with the arms, bicep swivel, double jointed elbow, and a wrist ball. Does the kickback, double knee, kick forward. Got the hinge at the boot, and a toe hinge. Here's Eradicator with some other Supermans here. We got the same Rebirth body on both of these guys. Here's the original and the black suit, which I think is also going to go well with these Reign of the Superman inspired figures, despite this also being a more modern design. Here he is with some more super characters. Here's the Hush Superman looking angry. And then here's the John Kent Superboy. It's not Connor Kent. It's not the proper character. But I do believe once we get that Connor Kent, he's going to be on the same body. And for no reason at all, we got the Mafex Cyborg Superman and the Dark Knight Superman. And last but not least, we couldn't go one wave without some Batman. And here we go with Vampire Batman. Got him in this pose, I don't even want to take him out of it. Really fun figure right off the bat. Only accessory being that bat axe that he comes with. Now, I haven't read DC versus Vampires. I probably will if it's in a trade paperback or once it comes to trade paperback. But I mean, I'm sure I can gauge what it's about just by looking at this guy. And yeah, a very fun figure, like I said. Let's look at this bat axe. Very metal inspired. You could throw this with one of your metal figures for sure. And yeah, here we go with Batman. And he's just a fierce looking figure. Now this is reuse of the Hush Batman, but we are also going to see it in the classic blue color. And that's going to be coming out soon. A lot of people already have it. I'm still waiting on mine from the McFarlane store. So the unique piece is really going to be the head here. And that does capture the look of the cover art from the trading card very well. That's always been the McFarlane specialty, is the monsters, the maniacs. And in this case, the Vampire Batman. And even got some little blood splatter up here. And then they picked some really interesting colors here. This almost looks very, very dark blue. There's definitely some kind of hint to it. And then the gray here is so dark, but it's got, again, some color to it. Maybe a little purple or red. Just a hint, but it's just enough to make it interesting. Belt here is a very muted brown color as well. On the hands here, you even see some blood, some shiny blood painted onto the hands. It's one of those capes, not like the Eradicator, closer to Supergirl, where it's got some motion to it, but it could also be in a natural pose fairly convincingly. It's a little bit extreme, but not nearly to the extent of Eradicator. And it's on these Batman bodies where the cowl and the neck is all sculpted, so that ball joint is down here, but the motion is not that far off. In fact, the look down is actually much better. And you could argue that the tilt is much better too. I mean, just look at the range on that. So, some pros and some cons, but I don't mind it for these Batman figures. Looking down, pretty much not at all. And then side to side, swivel motion, of course. And as you could see, I don't know if you could play that back, wasn't really a lot of force. So that's really unfortunate. Kind of put it back, and you know what? I did buy 2 of these, so I'm actually not as upset as I should be. But that's definitely a bummer. I've seen this happen on other Batman figures. I saw it happen with the Nolan one actually online. Just gonna have to take the L on this one, I guess. Well, with our loose arm here, you can see he's got a double elbow and some ball action at the wrist. For a limbless Batman, he's kicking back that much, forward that much. Got a double knee, almost goes all the way back, goes up pretty high. And then he's got a hinge at the boot and a toe hinge. And for comparison, here's what I got handy. Here's Nolan Batman and 3 Jokers Batman. And overall, that's going to do it for this action-packed review. We got limbs flying off, but overall, I do really like these 4 figures. I guess we're just getting to the point with action figures, any company, that it's really just smart to heat up your joints before you start moving them around. Even still, I'm not sure if that Batman would have been avoided. That seemed like it was a pretty inset issue. But hey, I'm 2 reviews back, and it seems like 2 reviews with a little bit of hiccups. If you remember with Bane, we had some trouble putting him together. So I guess it's only right something went wrong here. But I'm going to stay positive. I like all 4 of these figures. Justice 2 figures especially. Go pick these up from the International, from Canada, from wherever you could get them, because I think they're going to be rare figures. Even if they do end up hitting the States, they've had a very weird release, so keep a lookout for that. As always, if you like this kind of content, leave a like, subscribe, and tell me what you thought about this review and these figures, and what you want to see me review next. As always, I'll leave this off with some figure photography, and if you like commentary and talking shop about DC Comics and more, check out my other channel, and I'll see you guys in the next action figure review.